Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Utah Board of Water Resources electronic board briefing meeting. Today is March 17th, 2021, and it is approximately 10:02 by the clock on my computer. So we like to call this meeting to order. To start with, going to read the COVID-19 electronic meeting notice, which says, due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the ability of the virus to spread from person to person, the governor has implemented a number of executive orders directed at controlling spread of the virus by minimizing face-to-face interactions. Public gatherings are strongly discouraged by the CDC, state of Utah, and local health departments since they facilitate face-to-face contact and pose an elevated risk for virus transmission. The Division of Water Resources and the chair of this public body have determined that public gathering of Board of Water Resources meetings presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who attend. As such, this meeting will be conducted using a fully electronic format. This meeting format is authorized by recent amendment of the Utah Code and executive order by Utah Governor Harry Herbert and will be temporarily used in place of the in-person public meetings that usually occur around the state. Anyone wishing to comment on agenda topics in future meetings or to observe this meeting may do so by logging on to the division's website at www.water.utah.gov/comments/. So this is an electronic meeting that will be conducted under the protocol established by the governor. As far as let's start with a roll call first of those present. And so we'll conduct first a roll call of the board members by roll call. Bear River, Charles Holmgren.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here.
Weber River, Kyle Stevens.
Present.
Salt Lake, Juliet Tannert.
Present.
Green River, Randy Crozier.
Present.
Upper Colorado River, Norman Johnson.
Present.
Lower Colorado River, do we have Jim Lemon on yet?
Jim is on, but he is muted.
Jim, you're muted.
There, can you hear me now?
We can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
hear you. So
Okay.
you are present. Okay, thank you, Jim. Provo River, Wayne Anderson, and Wayne may not be to this briefing meeting. Or is Wayne on? Do we know?
We haven't seen Wayne yet. Wayne let me know that he had a commitment and he may be late, but he would definitely be to the he was going to try to be to the board meeting this afternoon, but he was most likely going to miss the briefing meeting.
Okay, thank you. And my name is Blaine Ibsen, and I represent the Sevier River. So welcome everybody who's here. Director Adams, would you please identify the others who are here at this?
I will
briefing?
definitely identify the individuals that are on this call. Welcome to those others that are out in YouTube land. So thank you for being here. We have staff members of Ben Marett, Betsy Morgan, Candace Hossenjager, Carmen McDonald, Joe Williams, Lindsay Russell, Marisa Egbert, Randy Staker, Scott McGettigan, Shalane DiBernardi, Todd Stonley, Tom Cox, and Paul Gedge. And then I think we have another one that's with Lindsay, and her name is Ati Banakua, and we'll introduce them here in just a minute.
Okay, welcome everyone. And it looks like we have several others that are out on YouTube, and we welcome each and every one of you as well. A few logistical items before we proceed any further. Those who want to speak, please identify yourself, board members, staff members, those who are participating. Identify who you are, mute your microphone on your device or your computer when you're not speaking so we don't have any background noise. On the cell phone devices, if you use the combination *6, that will mute or unmute your devices. If you've got a computer, a PC, Control D will mute or unmute your computer if you need to use those. So those are just some logistical matters to go over. Going into our agenda now on our briefing meeting, item number 1, the chair report. Again, it seems like not that long ago, the end of January, when we were meeting. And here we are, things with COVID-19 appear to be loosening up a bit. It's the vaccinations being made available for more people. I was able to go get a couple 10 days ago, and it's nice to see that things appear to be moving in the right direction now on COVID. My hope is that in the near future, we will be able to meet in person. These virtual meetings have been good and technology is wonderful, but it'd be nice to be able to meet in person again. We already mentioned it a little bit prior to the meeting, but happy St. Patrick's Day for all of you. My wife is a librarian at the local elementary school, and it's a big deal for her and for the kids at school, I know. So happy St. Patrick's Day. Weather still, it's been a little wetter recently, and I've been watching around the state. We will be getting a report in our afternoon meeting from on the weather from Jordan Clayton, and things are looking up a bit. It's still really dry though down in my area, and hopefully we've got a wet spring ahead of us. Appreciate all the efforts that are being made to keep things moving behind the scenes in the position I have. There's a lot of things going on with the division staff, and I appreciate the division staff and all of their efforts. There's a lot going on that it doesn't show, but a lot is going on. So with that, let's, if we could, Director Adams, we have a thing or two that I'd like you to go over if you would. I understand we have some new employees that you'd like to introduce.
Awesome. Thank you, Chairman. We are excited. We're starting to get fuller staffed, and we have 2 new staff members we would like to introduce to you. I'm going to have Scott McGettigan, the Interstate Stream section, go first and introduce his new employee, Betsy. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Todd, and thanks, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. And we're happy to. I think it was pretty recently we did the same thing. We hired a new Interstate Stream section employee, and we're happy to be doing the same thing again here a couple months later. And her name is Betsy Morgan. She's from Montana. She's just finishing up her master's, and she can tell you a little bit about herself. And we're really happy to have her on. Though we know she'll do a great job. She has a background in wildlife, and has some experience in river modeling. So we're sure she'll be a benefit to the Interstate Stream section, and we still need all the help we can get. So we're happy to have her. But Betsy, can you go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Betsy Morgan. I graduated from Oregon State University with a bachelor's in ecological engineering. Then right after that, I moved to Wyoming. Spent a few summers in Laramie, and then 2 years in Lander, Wyoming, working for the Wyoming Game and Fish Department as an aquatic habitat biologist. And then I sort of kicked myself out of the nest and decided to go to grad school. So I went to Utah State University and did a master's in civil engineering. And when I was there, I did a research program in climate adaptation science. And then my master's research focused on environmental flows and flow ecology relationships in Northern California. And so I'm just finishing that up, and really happy to start here. So thank you.
Thanks, Scott and Betsy. Any questions from board members? You know, we're just glad to have another Aggie on board.
I'll second that.
Welcome, Betsy.
All right. And Mr. Chair, it looks like Marty Bushman just joined us, so he's on the call with us too today. Let's next go to Joel Williams. Joel, do you want to introduce Ati, please?
We are so excited to introduce our new office specialist at our front desk, Ati Vainuku. She, we've gone over a year now. Well, I guess it's just about a year, getting close to a year without having that position filled. And it's kind of been, we've made it through because of the pandemic and not having a lot of staff in the office, but we are thrilled now to have especially somebody of her talent and caliber to come to join our team. So I'll let Ati tell you a little bit about herself.
And Ati and Lindsay are sharing video today because we don't have Ati camera yet. So that's where they're at right now.
I'm not that special, I guess. Hi, guys. I am coming from 20 years in healthcare. I've got my MBA, and I was managing operations for Intermountain's private duty personal care section and got burned out. So I am the office specialist, and I'm loving life and loving time with my kids, and I'm loving it here. Everybody here is so great, and I love joining this team. So nice to meet all of you guys, and you guys are all impressive. I mean, this has been great 3 days so far. So, and Todd wanted me to say that he's awesome. Yeah.
That was Todd Stonley. Okay.
It'll be great when we get back to normal in the office, and all you board members can come in and meet Ati in person. She'll be at the front desk and see the picture of her beautiful children. She's got a wonderful family, and she comes with a lot of talent, a bachelor's and a master's, and she's a great addition to our team. We're thrilled to have her. So thanks, Ati.
Welcome, Ati.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Ati. That's our two newest members. We'll continue to work to try to find more as we're helping to serve the public and work for you, the board members. So thanks, Kyle. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Next item that I thought would be good to cover would be, before we get into the discussion on the board on agenda items, if Director Adams, if you would mind just brief the board just a little bit with some of the building block funding things that came from the legislature and how it might relate to some of the projects that we've got coming and planned, whether it be projects on lining ditches or dams or whatever. If you could just kind of brief us a little bit on some of that information that has come out of the recent legislature.
Sure, we'd be more than happy to. And we'll have a legislative update under other information to the board a little bit later in the briefing meeting. So let me just touch on real high level components. And I believe Candace sent you a division newsletter, a quarterly newsletter that we're starting. And several of the items that we've had in there is there was some funding for a land use and water planning study of about just under $300,000. The Colorado River Authority received $9 million one-time money and $600,000 ongoing. UDAF received $3 million for agricultural water optimization funding for on-farm type of projects. The division received $18 million for dam safety upgrades from the C&D fund. So a one-time transfer from your revolving fund for dam safety programs, projects. We believe that this money will get us through the next 2 years with all of the major dams that we have. I believe Tom sent a copy of a dam safety project summary that has a schedule of potential dams that are on the high hazard list, as well as ones we're working through with the NRCS that we would potentially fund with this $18 million, as well as the schedule and plan of your $3.8 million dedicated to dam safety funding. That will get us, for the most part, into the summer of 2023. based on your guidelines of funding normally about 90%, 10% split on those dams. With that said, we have the estimate on these projects, and you know what estimates are? They're estimates. And typically on dam safety programs and projects, they go higher than originally estimated. So we're looking at that. I've already had some discussion with a few legislators about what we do in the long run, and the 3.8 as inflation happens doesn't have the same buying power that it once did, and how we get some additional appropriations or additional whatever to do dam safety components. So that's what I can maybe present to you right now. Mr. Chairman, does that answer your question, or is that what you're looking for, or is there any questions from the board members? And if so, I've got great staff that will help make up the rest of the information through Tom Cox or Joel or Shalane or any of them. So
that answered my questions. That's great that we did get that additional funding, that 18 million for dam safety. That'll help. That's good news. It'd be nice if we could get a lot more than that. There are a lot of dams out there, but that's great news. I don't know, board members, do you have any questions for Director Adams that you'd like to ask on the building block or anything with that?
This is Kyle. Not any questions on the building block per se, but first of all, we'd just like to compliment Candace and staff for putting that newsletter together, and thank you for sending that out to us as board members. It gives us a snapshot of things that have happened or and are happening. Having been a former state employee, congratulations to everybody on a little bit of a bump in the salary with a 3% increase for state employees. I did have a couple of questions just for Todd relative to a couple of the pieces of legislation that were passed. Where House Bill 346, where the let's look, those are the combinations of the energy development within the Department of Natural Resources, and then divides the Parks and Rec into two different divisions. What are those divisions going to look like? The two new divisions in Parks and Rec, how are they separating those out?
Well, from what I understand, and everything's pretty new right now, so we're still trying to figure it out, the department in Parks, but they are going to have a division of Parks and a division of Recreation. And that's about the detail that I can tell you right now.
Okay, and then the other one was, I see where the state planning agencies, they've now moved the PLPCO, Public Lands Policy Coordinating Office, down within the Department of Natural Resources.
Yes, that's House Bill 368, and that will move PLPCO within the Department of Natural Resources. It has been here at other times, but this will help us get together and deal with these federal, state resource management plans, these planning issues a little bit better.
Well,
that will happen, I believe, sometime between now and July or right around that time. And it's going to happen fast. The Office of Energy, I think they have a long-term lease that they're working on, and that may not happen quite as fast as far as being located here, but at least we'll be working closer together.
Okay, then the other question I had was on House Bill 297, the Colorado River amendments, where I talked about would be given the authority to hire an executive director and such. How do you see that impacting the division and working in that regard?
That's a good question, but the way I'm looking at it is it'll be additional resources for the state and the authority to work together on interstate stream issues, whether it's whatever's happening on the Colorado River.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Hey, any other board members?
Mr. Chairman, this is Randy.
Okay.
Just had a question. in the letter that we read on the electronic meetings, it refers to Governor Herbert. Has our new governor put out similar designation on the meetings? Do we need to clarify that as it's Governor Cox rather than Governor Herbert, who's no longer there?
Marty, this was your latest, the version we read was your latest version. Has the new governor put anything out, or is that still accurate, the last one that you gave us, which was updated last meeting?
Yes, I have not heard anything new from Governor Cox on this. This particular notice is really being done pursuant to statute. During one of the interim sessions last year, the legislature passed some laws on public meetings that kind of put in a little bit different process than the emergency orders that were previously in place. And one of those is to evaluate the need for a modified public meeting because of public health and safety concerns, and to make that assessment for each meeting. And so this statement is what the statute requires us to read and make a determination on, and that has not changed.
Okay, so the version we read is still the current accurate version.
Yes.
Yes.
As long as the version you read did reference Governor Cox. I think it said the governor's office simply because I'm not aware.
There was still one. The version we read, you still had referencing Governor Herbert with a footnote on the executive order down below. So yeah, Governor Herbert was still referenced in it, but it was for the statute that we're still following that was implemented with Governor Herbert last year.
And it was his executive orders that were interplaying with that statute.
Yes, yes. So it does reference Gary Herbert, but like you say, that's the rules we're still following. So
yes, it is.
I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure we weren't referencing something we shouldn't be.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question, Randy. Thank you. Any other questions from the board while we're on this part of the agenda? Okay, if not, let's move on to the next item on our briefing meeting agenda, which is discussion of the board agenda items for our 1 o'clock meeting. Again, before we get into those, I want to just refresh with everybody that the logistics of when we have the reports, the feasibility reports, special item reports, the action items, things like that. The first thing that will take place is a staff member will give a presentation. Then the applicant will have a chance to respond. Then the board can ask any questions to the applicant that the board thinks would be applicable. Then we'll ask Randy Staker if there were any public comments received on that particular item. Then we'll have some more board discussion, see if there's any clarification that needs to take place. And then after all of that, and we need to follow those in that sequential order, we will entertain a motion and a second and have a vote on the item. And it will be a roll call vote again, like we're doing with these virtual meetings. So board members, is there any question on that? This is the same exact logistical format we've been following for better part of a year now, but just a refresher that is the format we will be following in these presentations.
Mr. Chairman, this is Todd. As you read in the board book, we mistakenly did not post the January meeting. And so we need to go back through and reconsider all the action items taken in the meeting in January and take public comment if public comment comes in. We so apologize for this. We will try not to let it happen again. We will try our darndest not to let this happen again. It won't happen again. And we will make sure that we've got to do that. So the first 3 or 4 items are from where actions were taken, maybe even 5 items where actions were potentially taken. We will redo in today's meeting and make sure we are covered. That's the direction we got from our legal counsel, as well as discussion. We will not approve the minutes because of that until maybe the May meeting and approve what happened in the January meeting, as well as what we're going to follow up in the March meeting. So
Right. Right. So let's just go into the agenda, and with that in mind, that's the third item down on your agenda that you have for the 1 o'clock meeting. The first item on there is the approval of the minutes, and as Director Adams said, we will hold those until May and approve those minutes for our January 28th meeting in our May meeting, along with the minutes for today. Now, I did notice one thing in the draft minutes that were there, and that one thing was that the COVID notice, the executive order, was the old one that we had been using, and Marty for our January meeting had put together the new one, which it was the same one we used today also. And so we've passed that along, and that will be fixed in the minutes for us to approve come May. So you'll notice there's not many things that are different, but there's a few subtle differences in the notice that we read in January and today as opposed to what we were doing before. So do any of the rest of you board members have any other items on the minutes that you would like clarified or anything? Again, we're not going to approve the minutes today, but do you have any things that you noticed on the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes.
Charles Holmgren. On page 4 of the briefing meeting minutes, we're discussing Bear River Commission membership, and it lists Brian Merrill, and that should be Ryan Merrill.
RYAN?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And somebody made me look more civilized when I was talking about being grateful for my canal. I think I was more colorful than that, but we better let it stand that way.
We'll let it stand.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the board members on the minutes? Okay, so in today's meeting, we'll just note that the approval of the January 28th meetings will be held off until our May meeting. So we will not have any action taken today in the 1 o'clock meeting on the minutes. The next item on the agenda, we'll have the snow report from Jordan Clayton on that and see what numbers. And I really am hopeful that his soil water index that looks so terrible for the entire state in our January meetings is looking a little bit better anyway. That was pretty sobering to me. We'll mention that we are reconsidering the January action items. Now on those, the presentations were made and the applicants were in attendance. Because they were mistakenly not posted on the public notice website, however, the opportunity for public comment was not there. So we, as Director Adams said, we will need to reconsider those items in our agenda today. And the first item on that we'll be reconsidering will be a vote to ratify Governor Cox's appointment of Utah's representatives of Gene Shawcroft for the Upper Colorado River Commission and Todd Adams on the Bear River Commission. So both of those items will come up. We will have a discussion on those as applicable. Director Adams, is staff going to give just a brief little presentation on either of those, or are we just going to discuss briefly what they are and then have motions on each of those?
We'll do the same as we had done last meeting and just give a quick update. I've got the letter from the governor on making that appointment, and we can discuss them, and we will take those as two separate action items.
Okay. Now, who from staff will be bringing each of those up?
It'll be myself and maybe Brian Steed, our department director.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Now in reading the minutes, on the one on the Upper Colorado River Commission, it wasn't just with Gene Shawcroft. It also had you, Todd, and the state engineer as alternates or whatever. So I would assume the motion today would follow a similar format.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that we'll cover that on the interstate stream appointments. Then we go into the feasibility reports. And again, the format on these, staff will give just a brief summary of them. They won't go through the whole discussion like we did last time, just a brief summary, and then have their recommendation, and we'll have our discussion and still go through where the board can ask questions and ask if there were any public comments received and clarification, and then a motion, second, and vote on these next items as well. And so the feasibility report on Sunrise and Bench Creek Irrigation Company, that's in Wasatch County, that's Wayne's area. And the project manager is Russell Hadley. So I'm assuming Russell will give a short presentation on that, and then
actually, Blaine, can I chime in here?
Yes,
this is Shalane. I think for the purposes of today's meeting, we decided it would be most efficient if I just gave a quick summary of the ones that were in January. Just so you're all aware, Jaqueline will not be joining us today. Don't know if you heard or not. She had a baby on March 4th. So she is on leave and will not be attending. So I will do just a quick recap. I do have the slides in the slide presentation that will show the maps and the cost sharing breakdowns and the staff recommendation for each of those projects. We will ask you to go ahead and skip the Peoa project at this time, the Peoa South Bench, when we're considering the January items, because they are going to be here today to make their request, their special request. So we'd like to just consider it as a special item at the end of the March items. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Now, I've visited with Todd about it, and I visited with Kyle about that, and that's in Kyle's area. And the consensus between the three of us, unless Todd or Kyle has changed, our consensus was that we felt just to prove it exactly like it was in that meeting, and then at the second part, bring up their new proposal. And to us, it seems like it would just be cleaner. That is really what happened in the board meeting. Yes, there was not public comment, public notice, but that is what happened, and that it would allow cleaner minutes and cleaner process and procedure if we just did identical to what we did in the January meeting, and then later on in this new action item, they have a different proposal. Let them present that at that point. That was Kyle and Todd and my thought process. I don't know, Todd and Kyle, are you still on the same page with that?
This is Kyle. I am. And so, Shalane, a question to you then. You'll present the staff recommendation on the wording for approval, just as it was presented in the January meeting, and I'll move to approve that. And and then we'll discuss the other issue in the separate meeting.
Okay. And I do have a slide written up for the applicant's request for the later consideration, so you will have that to see if you want it.
Okay, thank you.
That works for me. I'm fine doing that. If you want to address it in the January items, just as we did, that's fine with me.
Okay. I personally think that's the better way to do it, but okay, let's backtrack just a little bit with Sunrise and Bench, where that's Wayne's. Typically, he would make the motion. If Wayne is not here, is there someone who would feel comfortable in Wayne's behalf of making a motion on the Sunrise and Bench Creek Company?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim. I could do that if you'd like.
Okay.
If he's not there.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. On the Moon Lake Water Users Association, where they requested additional funds, that's Duchesne County. Randy Crozier, are you still good with making a motion on that one?
Sure, and I'll be happy to do Gene Shawcroft on the Colorado River and that one as well.
Okay. Okay. Backtracking to the Bear River, last time on that one, Charles, you made the motion on that one. Are you still good with that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will do that.
Okay. Okay, on the Peoa South Bench, the Summit County one, and we'll come to when we get to the new action item part of this agenda in just a few minutes. We'll let Shalane present and Kyle what their new request is and all of that. But when it comes time, if a motion's made to change what we reauthorized with this one, anyway, Kyle, are you willing to make the motion on both of those when the time comes, Kyle?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the Cove Waterworks Company, which was additional funding, Cache County. Charles, you willing the motion again on this one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will.
Okay, thank you. So that will take care of the reconsideration of the January action items. Moving down our agenda, after we get through with those, we'll move into the new action items. And the first new action item we'll discuss is under the feasibility reports. And that's project RE445. And that's the Vail Culinary Water Association. It's in Washington County. That's Jim's area. And Tom Cox is the project manager for that. So Jim, Tom, would you like to discuss that project for us and kind of fill us in on, they are coming as a feasibility thing is what they'll be presenting today. But Jim and Tom, would you like to update us on this project?
I will make a mention of a couple of things and then let Tom follow up on there. It is a project they really need. They have 2 different tanks at different levels. One of them you can shower under. I think I counted 10 different leaks of spraying water out of the metal tank there. And so it really needs to be updated to this concrete tank that will replace those 2. It does waste a lot of water with all of the leaks that are in the metal tank. Tom, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, it really is a pretty straightforward project. Like Jim mentioned, they'll be replacing 2 rusting, leaking water tanks with 1 concrete one. When we met, well, they were talking about a 500,000 gallon tank. They're now thinking they may need something bigger. So just keep that in mind. We'll adjust if necessary when the committal of funds time comes, if that increases the cost estimate. You know, when we met, I was beginning to think that those tanks, the old ones, that was the community center, because not only was it a community fountain, but it was a place for their local artists to do their thing. So there's a lot of graffiti. So in the pictures I'm showing, I cut that out because some of it wasn't appropriate. But the other thing was they have approached the Washington County Water Conservancy District about possibly getting some money from them. Nothing's been committed, so that doesn't show up in the cost sharing. And once again, we can adjust that if it happens when funds are committed. So that's basically it. We're giving them a 1% interest in 30 years because they're so far over the board's affordability guideline as far as water bills go that they deserve the lower interest rate and extended years. If there's any questions, be glad to answer them.
Okay, anyone have any questions for that project for Tom or Jim? Okay, so with that one, Jim, after it's presented in the board meeting, are you prepared to make a motion on that project?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item that will be covered in our 1 o'clock meeting is the committal of funds portion of the agenda. And the first project on here is project RC031. It's for the DMAD company. It's under dam safety. It's in Millard County. And Tom is the project manager on that. And I will say on that I am going to need to recluse myself from discussion or vote from the board on that. I happen to be a shareholder in each of those 4 companies. The DMAD stands there. It's the first initial of the first name of 4 different companies that jointly own this reservoir. Delta Canal Company is the first D. M is for Melville Irrigation Company. A is for Abraham Irrigation Company. D is for the Deseret Irrigation Company. And so collectively, when they're in terms of dealing with this reservoir, they're known as the DMAD company. And like I say, I have shares in each of those 4 companies in my name. I'm a director in the Abraham Irrigation Company, so I'm going to need to recluse myself from the discussion. I will say this, that this is a dam safety upgrade for the spillway. It's it's just to bring it up to the current specs, a very good project. I've been to some of the meetings on this. I've been very impressed with the engineering that's been done on it, the attempts to save costs on it. I've been very, very impressed with the conscious effort on behalf of the engineering and the DMAD officers in this particular company. It's a good company. It's a good project. I will say that the DMAD companies are, and Tom will go through this, are going to come up with an alternate proposal. This is phase 2 of a project with phase 1, and they're going to come up with a request. Phase 1, they were funded for the seismic and some of those things at a 95% grant rate. They're going to come up with that alternate proposal. Anyway, from here, I'm going to recluse myself from the discussion, and I've asked Assistant Director Kyle if he will take over and lead the discussion from here.
Mr. Chairman, that would be Vice Chair Kyle.
Yeah, Vice Chair.
I didn't know I got it. Was there any pay that comes along with that? As Blaine has indicated there, he will recuse himself from participating in the discussion and the voting. Let's look, not having had a lot of experience in conducting the meeting. So Tom, anything that you want to present there that we should be knowledgeable about relative to this project?
Yeah, I should just add some background information. The DMAD dam was built in about 1909, and it was enlarged in 1957. And that was with funds from Water Resources, and that loan, of course, has been paid off. Back in 1984 or in 83, the floods that came through the state then took out their spillway. So in 1984, division staff designed a replacement spillway, and that was constructed with 100% funding from the Water Resources as a loan, which the companies paid off. Then, as Blaine mentioned, the dam safety upgrade projects, phase 1 was completed in 2008 and consisted of stability berms and toe drains on the main dam, but the spillway issues were not addressed at that time. The board committed 95% grant, and the dam owners came up with the other 5% from their own money. The problem was during the design of for the current project, it was found that the soil that the spillway, the 1984 spillway was built on, was susceptible to liquefaction, and because of the geometry, the way the spillway was designed and built, there were some other problems that created some scour hole at the base of the spillway, and so it's really not a safe structure. So after that, some more investigation, it was determined that because of those problems and others, that it would be more economical just to replace that spillway with a big new one. And it does need to be a big one. The drainage area that dam sits on is over 6,000 square miles. And if you think about that, that's probably around 7% of the state's entire area. And so those spillways have to be huge. They have to be bigger than anything you see on the federal dams like Jordanelle or Echo or any of those because of the big drainage area that they're on. And the current spillway only can pass about 32% of the required flood. So a bigger spillway is needed. But if they could have saved that spillway, they could have just built an additional spillway to the side, and that would probably have cost maybe half of what the proposed project is going to be. So the proposed phase 2 of the project includes replacing the spillway and putting in drains, filling in the scour hole, and those types of things. And you see in the report that the project cost is $14.75 million. Well, bids were opened last week, and the bids came in under that, but because of all the questions that are related to upgrade work, we felt it was better to keep a hefty contingency in there just in case. So we're keeping the project funding as shown in the report, even though that will create around a 20% contingency, about $2 million for unexpected items that come up. So it's kind of expected that the project won't cost that much, and as such, the board's amount that they actually use and the amount that the dam owners will have to come up with will be less. But coming up in a year or two, there's plans to do the dam safety upgrade on Sevier Bridge Reservoir, which is just upstream. And that dam project will include basically the same people, the 4 companies in the DMAD plus one other company. So they'll need to be coming up with their cost share for that project also. So the staff is recommending the typical cost share percentage of 90% grant, 10% from the local dam owners. And the numbers are there. That's a lot of money, but spread over the 40,000 acres that the project, the DMAD reservoir serves, that if you take the amount of the proposed annual payment, which is $148,000, and divide that by the 40,000 acres that it serves, that comes up with a amount of about $3.71 per acre. And that is in line with the other projects we've done, the other loans on dam safety projects we've done.
Okay, are there any questions from board members then relative to this issue?
Mr. Chairman, this is Randy.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm concerned if we go down less than the 90-10. I realize they might have another in the future, but I think we address that dam and maybe we consider a different rate at that point. But there's a lot of dams that still got to be taken care of. And I know there's a lot of dams that have been paid for 100% by the owners because they weren't classified as high hazard, but we still had to upgrade those dams and pay 100% of the bill. So I think a 90-10 split, I guess that's where I'm at, board members, personally.
Okay, other comments, questions?
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Charles Holmgren, and I'm a little bit like Randy Crozier's comments too. I'm going to be, well, if I'm still around, Up in our area, we've got the Blue Creek Dam, and those folks would like to go a 95-5 split on that as well. And, you know, I'm very sympathetic to the DMAD folks and understand the burden that is being placed on them. I used to think that these dam safety grants were like winning the lottery. And from my point of view, from their point of view, it's like a 10% tax on their system. So depends on your perspective a great deal. I was wondering if there's any potential of extending their annual payments beyond 10 years, if that would make it more palatable on the payback portion of the part that is assigned to them. So that's my question.
Okay, so that question to staff, is that a possibility of extending the length of the loan?
Yes, it is. And I've already kind of figured out what that amount would be for 10, 15, 20 years. So if the board's interested in those numbers, we can discuss that.
Why don't you go ahead and share those with us, Tom, so we have an idea ahead of time what that might look like.
Okay, if we of the $1,475,000 loan, if it's 10 years, the payment would be $148,400. If it's spread out to 15 years, that would be $99,200. And if it's extended to 20 years, it'd be $74,600.
Okay, thank you for that. Board members, any thoughts relative to that scenario?
Mr. Vice Chair, go ahead, Juliet.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of it. Like, I want to be as flexible as possible, but preserve funds. So I don't like the idea of going to the 90-10 split necessarily, but I'm just thinking that if we change terms, we should just be, and this is intuitive, obviously, for most people, but we'll need to be open to that for future. And I don't know. I'm more making a comment, but maybe Todd or Joel or Candace can weigh in on how that impacts the availability, how changing the timing impacts the availability.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I can maybe ask Tom to do that, but my question would be is if you were to go to something greater than the 10 years, 15, 20, whatever, have we done that before, Tom or Shalane? The question is I think typically those were always intended to be shorter loans. I mean, kind of the bridge loan to help them with their cost share component, and it was intended to get that back fairly soon or have additional dam safety funds money to help with that. Tom, is that correct, or do you want to straighten me out?
Yeah, but if we have a varied number of years for payments just based on the individual circumstances, we've had as short as 1 year or 5 years, but that was in the earlier projects, I think, where the practice was just to tack those loans onto an existing loan that the company had. It would just pay off the dam safety loan after that. Lately, we've just been going 10 years, but one of the last ones we did through Sharon was we gave them 35 years because of the amount that they have to borrow and pay back, and their cost per acre is like over $13 per acre, whereas that's why we gave them the extended time period. Whereas this one, with the 10 years, they would get, it equates to the $3.71 per acre.
Sure. And this is Shalane. I would just add, Tom's got all the information correct there. I think one of the things he points out in his report is, I think if DMAD got their way, they really actually wouldn't want to borrow anything from you. They'd rather that you gave them the higher grant and they covered their share by themselves. So I don't know that they would ask for a longer repayment term for the loan. I don't know that that's really an issue for them. I mean, Tom has that information for you, but yeah, I'm not sure that's really their sticking point.
Yeah, just looking at, just kind of just judging their frustration is that they started paying on this dam in 1957. So they've been paying for it in one way or the other for decades, and they don't want to pay more.
Mr. Vice Chairman, this is Jim Lemon.
Go ahead.
You know, thinking about all of this, if I remember right, all of them that could use some help, we were well over 100 years to cover it. And if we change it at just 5%, but then you've got to do it with all of them, that means there's going to be some that we can't help. I think we ought to stick with what we've got.
Mr. Chairman, let me just add on to that. I mean, the dam safety funding component requires at least an 80% grant. So, and I don't know that we've done very many at 80%. Most of them have been around 90%. Typically, we've had maybe a handful that have gone over like this one prior. That was at 95, but you know, dam safety grants have to be at least 80%. Shalane, you want to straighten me out? Is that correct?
No, I just wanted to say the only 80% grants that we've done are when they're owned by a government entity. The idea was, why should one government entity be providing another government entity funds? It just isn't the best use of the board's state dam safety funds. So the general guideline for the board is 90%. And there was a series of 95% grants. Of course, they were much smaller projects. And it was a series of, hey, well, you gave so-and-so 95, so now we want 95 too. And so you could be starting that process again. I think I talked to Tom about this. I don't think the board has provided a 95% grant since 2007.
Yeah, that's what Tom indicated in the report and information that he gave to us. So any further comments or questions?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Charles again, and just as I believe I said something to it before, but when we get down to the Blue Creek Dam, it's only a $3 million project, but they're already after me to go 95% on that. So I'm concerned about helping DMAD out and then have to turn my Blue Creek guys down or down to 90. So that's it.
Okay. With that, we will need to have someone make a motion since Blaine is recusing himself, plus he's the chairman. So do we have someone that would be willing to make a motion on this particular project?
I could do that, Mr. Vice Chairman, if you'd like.
Okay, Jim, we'll have you make that motion, and after we've had the discussion, and go from there. If there's no further comments on this issue, then I'll turn the time back to Chairman Ipson.
Okay, thank you. Moving along the agenda on the committal of funds to the next project, it's project RE373. It's Ashley Upper Irrigation Company. This is in Uintah County, Randy's area, and Ben Marett is the project manager on it. So Randy and Ben, would you like to brief us on this project?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So this is a rather large project that came before the board for authorization back in 2018. Since then, the project has been moving along with planning and design, also some environmental remediation work. It was put off, well, not put off, but delayed a bit for some environmental remediation due to Ute lady stresses. But the project is at a point where they are prepared for committal. They are going to be piping 2 canals. There are 2 canal companies that are working together on this. One of them is the Ashley Upper Irrigation Company, and the other one is the Highline Canal Company. And they have worked very closely for years. They share a diversion structure, and are going in on this together. But with Ashley, Highline is acting as the main project applicant. But together, they will be putting in approximately 25 miles of pipe, installing a diversion structure. Well, they'll be doing some work on their diversion structure. They'll be putting in a settling pond, inlet screens, and the project is expected to come out to around $21 million. The board authorized $5,045,000. But at this point, with increased costs due to inflation and materials, and then environmental remediation, they're coming to the board now for a committal of $6,686,000. The rest of the project funds are coming from grants from the Uinta Transportation Special Service District, the NRCS Regional Conservation Partnership Program, Bureau of Reclamation, and then the Uinta Water Conservancy District is purchasing the old canals from the applicants, and they're going to be using those as flood control and routing. And they're purchasing right-of-way for those canals from the applicants for well over $10 million. And that money is being used by the applicants. The project started construction it told me I lost connection. I hope everybody can hear me okay.
We lost you there. You've been coming in and out, Ben.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. I'll hurry and wrap this up. So they're ready for committal at this point. The project is expected to complete construction in 2023. And all pipe is in, like I said, they're going. So that's about all the information I have to give you guys. Are there any questions?
This is Norman. I had a question as to why the Uinta Transportation District amount went down. Their contribution went from $1,750,000.
They redirected some of those funds to a different project. I believe it was something to do with Red Fleet Reservoir or Steinecker, one of those two. Yeah. Randy, do you have any additional details on that?
I think Randy had to leave us for just a minute. He still showed being on, but he had to step away for just a little bit.
Gotcha. Those funds were redirected to a different project.
They stayed in the water family then.
Yes. And those funds are being used to assist with road crossings. So where they've got to dig up the highway or the roads and then repair them.
Okay, that was a good question. Board members, any other questions for Ben on this project? Okay, Randy, I'm sure will be willing to make that motion then when the time comes. The next item is under special item category. It's project RE417, and it's the one we talked about earlier. It's the Peoa South Bench Canal and Irrigation Company, which we discussed and approved funding for in the January meeting, and then we'll redo the same thing on our earlier part, reaffirm it. But apparently they're going to have another request. Kyle, this is your area, Summit County, and then Shalane, I'm assuming you're covering for Jaqueline. So Kyle and Shalane, would you like to update us on this new request which Peoa has?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and lead in. Either the afternoon of the day that we had the board meeting or the next day, Mr. Turpin contacted me and indicated that they had made a big mistake by not requesting the proposal that they had talked about bringing before the board in the board meeting, and so was upset that they hadn't made that request. And I indicated to him that we did have the discussion in the briefing meeting earlier, and that I didn't know what the full consensus of the board was, but felt like there was some consideration to give consideration to their request for different terms. And then I just suggested the only thing you can do is make a request back to the division, which I think I forwarded the copy of the email that he sent to me to Shalane and Todd and others, indicating that they had made that request and wanted to have other consideration made on it. And so that's what's brought us to this point. I did indicate to them, and I apologize to the staff for making that, being relatively new board member, although it's been 4 years, I was not aware of what the previous situations were as far as having electronic meetings in the meantime, in between board meetings, to request some of these types of considerations, and suggested to Sam at that point that perhaps might be a possibility, but I didn't know. And then later found out that is something that hasn't necessarily been considered or done in the past. And so that's what's brought us to this point. And I think we, owe them an opportunity to re-request what they wanted to present based on the fact that they didn't take the action in the earlier board meeting to do so. So I don't know if it's kind of a roundabout way, Shalane, of.
No, you're right, Kyle. Yeah, it's essentially, we had it in that original report. Jaqueline had written that they might be making a special request. Yeah, like Kyle said, it was right after the board meeting. They reached out and said, so is there a chance we can get this higher amount? We didn't know if it was appropriate to speak out in the meeting. And it was like, yeah, you should have spoken up. But so they did submit an official request, and that's why they're on the agenda today. Essentially what they're asking for, I don't know if you recall, there are lots of different entities putting funding, grant funds and money into this project. It's a large project. $3,843,000 is what we're asking you to reauthorize, as we expanded the scope. And essentially what they're asking for is, instead of 85% of the non-grant portion, which is what the board, what staff's recommendation is, they are going to request that the board provide 90% of the non-grant portion. So instead of $1,660,000, that would be $1,758,000 from the board. It's not real difficult math. You can see that almost $100,000 difference, which is significant to the applicant. It may not be huge to the board, but it is significant to the applicant when they're talking about doing special assessments. So they will be here to make that argument and request, and I will have those numbers and what the motion would be if the board agrees to those terms.
Now they will have their company representation participating today also. Is that right, Shalane?
Absolutely. Yes, they will.
Okay, board members, got any questions, discussions, comments for Kyle or Shalane on this project? Shalane reached out a day or two after to several of us, and I got to admit, my first reaction was they had their chance. They were happy with what they got. What's the issue here? Is this a matter of, well, I got that. That was easy. Let's see, can I get more out of it? That was my initial reaction. I guess as I've looked at it more closely, it appears that they are genuinely concerned about their ability to make the repayments, and that $100,000 difference, like Shalane said, could be the difference. I know as a board, we've always wanted to set the applicants up for success. We don't like people to default on things or deal with it from that angle. So we've always, I've felt, been pretty flexible, wanting people to succeed if indeed there are issues on repayment, if they can meet it or not. So I guess after my initial knee jerk, the day after when I had that, I've since kind of come around personally to the point, well, you know, we do want them to succeed. And if that's what it takes, maybe I'm okay with it. I don't know. Board members, anybody have any other thoughts on this?
Mr. Chairman, this is Charles. I'm agreeing with it, but we run into this problem occasionally with, especially some of the applicants recently that we had out of Cache Valley, and they talk about their ability to repay projects and the cost benefit ratios. And some of these guys miscalculate what the cost benefit ratio is. And then when you plug it into the formula, they've got to pay it back in 10 years or something like that. And it becomes overwhelming to them if they don't give us really accurate information that way. And I think these folks are in a similar situation where they just weren't quite ready to address the reality that was going to face them. So I believe I can support it.
Anyone else have thoughts on this or discussion? Okay, well, we'll go into the meeting. Kyle, this is your area. Is your intent, after we listen to their presentation, is your intent to make a motion on these new terms, or we do not have to have a motion on this? I mean, we will have already approved the other terms. It'll be in the books. This is a intent to restructure it. I would assume that a motion would be on their terms, and if we don't get a motion or it doesn't carry, then it won't carry, is what it appears. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am sympathetic to their issues and causes, and have had some good discussion with them. I'm just trying to pull up an email. I haven't been able to do that yet relative to some of the additional information that the company sent to me on part of their justifications. I hope they'll bring that out in the discussion. In the meantime, I'll try and find it and look it up, but I am supportive of their request and would be willing to make that motion to reconsider and reauthorize.
Okay, so we'll do that and see where it goes then. So you'll make that motion. Okay, thank you, Kyle. Okay, the next item on the agenda is new applications. There's a project RE446, and it's for Provo River Water Users Association. It's in Wasatch County. That's Wayne's area. And if any of you are like me, when I first read through that, I kind of got sticker shock. It's a lot of money in there, but anyway, Tom, would you like to update us a little bit on this? And we're not taking any action on this new application today. It's not anything we're going to have a motion and a vote or anything like that. And we're not even really going to have a discussion on it in the meeting. But for the purpose of this briefing meeting, to get the board members brief that down the road, this is going to come up. Tom, would you like to just give us an update on what this is?
Sure. Basically, after all the years of operation, it's time to replace the inlet and control gates at Deer Creek Reservoir. So it's not a little project. And in order to keep the water flowing, they're going to attempt to do it without draining the reservoir, which actually even increases the cost. So it is a big project. It's going to cost a lot of money, but we've been assured that we have the funds for it. So we're going to be working with the company to do that. Don't really have any details right now, but if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Yeah, do any of you board members have any questions for Tom offhand? This is just a new application. It's still to be further developed and all that, but any questions, board members?
Blaine, this is Kyle. I had somewhat the same reaction you did. You just expressed about the sticker shock. And so a question to Tom, where the cost estimate right now is 60 million. Do you have any idea on what the Board of Water Resources portion of that cost would be?
Yeah, it looks like they're trying to get some money from the Central Utah Water Conservancy District. And so with that money and with their local cost share, they're asking for about 43 million from Water Resources, somewhere in that neighborhood.
And so with
Kyle,
that,
if I
go ahead.
Sorry, this is Shalane. I just wanted to make sure the board knows we actually were expecting this application. We've actually been waiting for it for a while. And just so you're aware, Provo River Water Users Association and the Provo Reservoir Water Users Company both have paid off what they owed the board on their bonds for the Marett Canal enclosure project. So while all that money may not be listed in the status of funds because it was just done in the last few months, we have received over $40 million from those two entities in the last few months that has gone back into the C&D fund. So yeah, we know it's a huge number. And like you said, sticker shock, all of you, it kind of was to us too. We kept hearing the numbers going up and up. But they have repaid the bonds that were existing to the board. So that money is available.
Okay, so did I understand you right then? That money is reflected in the status of funds report?
No, I don't believe it is because our status of funds works with what's available at the beginning of the fiscal year, and then we subtract from there. And so when we've had payments made off that were unexpected, that's not been added back into the status of funds. So that is additional funding that will be available.
So I'm looking at the status of funds report right now. Then on the C&D fund, it said it shows a $80 million balance. You're saying that would be the 40 million would be in addition to that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good questions. Any other questions, board members? Okay, that will be a project that we will be looking at in one of our next upcoming board meetings when it gets ready. And Tom, it sounds like Tom.
Mr. Chairman, you cut out.
Yeah, I just cut out. That will be a project that we will be looking at in the next few years then. And it shows that in the next few meetings, shows that Tom is the project manager for this. Is that correct? Is Tom going to be the project manager? Okay. Sounds good.
Yes, Tom has been assigned.
Okay, good. Okay, the next item on our agenda will be a planning report. And Jake will give us a report on the joint Bear River planning model. And then we will go into the Bear River development report, and Marissa will give us a report on that. Then we will go into a Lake Powell pipeline report. Joel will give us a report on that. And then we'll have our director's report from Director Adams, after which we will adjourn the meeting. And of course, to adjourn the meeting, we'll need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote on that. So that takes care of the agenda that we will be going through for our 1 o'clock board meeting. Before we leave that, is there any last minute questions on any of the things that we've talked about, or how that will flow?
Mr. Chairman, this is Kyle again. We didn't review the status of funds report, but and rather than bring it up in the board meeting, just had 2 or 3 questions relative to
that will come in just a minute. That's on our briefing agenda. That's yet to come on our briefing meeting. So
okay, I'll hold my question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Randy.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, sorry I'd slip out and pull a calf, but I'd be happy to make the motion on Ashley Upper Irrigation Company.
Okay. We'll plan on that. And were you successful?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just been one of those years. I pulled 9 out of 11 calves on heifers so far, and I've got another 9 to go. So.
Oh boy, mom and baby are doing well though, huh?
Oh yeah, they're good. It just something needed taken care of for a minute, and figured it was more important than this. No offense to anyone, but anyway, just was there any questions on Ashley Upper that I need to address for the board?
Did any of you have any questions for Randy on that? Ben gave the report, and Ben was cutting in and out, but I think, Randy, everybody got their questions answered.
Okay. All right. I apologize for that. It just timing, you don't have a choice sometimes. So thank you.
So do we advertise? Are you going to put your shingle out that Randy, Dr. Randy will travel?
No. I take care of 160 head, and that's enough for me to deal with. So,
yeah. Okay.
So anyway.
Good enough. Well, thanks, Randy. Welcome back. Okay, the next item, going back to our agenda for the briefing meeting, information for the board, and we will start with the item that Kyle just brought up. Let's start with Joel on the financial update on that. Joel, would you brief us on that, please?
Be happy to. Thank you. The status of funds are looking good, even considering some of these larger projects we know are on the horizon, like the DMAD and this Provo Reservoir Canal. Starting with the revolving construction fund. Again, that one is, I would consider it to be at capacity.
Joel, can I interject just a second? Wayne just joined us. Welcome, Wayne.
Good to see you, Wayne.
Thank you. I made a quick trip in from Duchesne, so glad I could be with you.
Welcome. Okay, go ahead, Joel.
Thank you. So yeah, revolving construction fund, we've as you're aware, we've kind of been diverting a few projects away from that fund while we allow it to recover and have a capacity again to do some additional projects. But for now, it is at capacity. City Water Loan Fund does have available just over $5 million. And so if there are additional applications we see coming in that are from municipalities, they are eligible for the City Water Loan Fund, and we could look at that funding for them. Conservation and Development is the largest fund, receives the sales tax money that comes into these revolving funds, and it is looking good and able to handle the projects that we've got on the docket right now. And so I think things are in good shape with the funds. And are there any specific questions about the funding? I think we had mentioned Kyle maybe had a question.
I did, Joel. And so mine is on, now that we put the dates out to the last column there, I just have a question on some of those. And I'll look at number 8, use that as an example. Weaver Basin was authorized back in 07. And here we are 14 years down the road. And that one hasn't, moved anywhere yet. Settlement Canyon, 08. Just wondering, and this is a question for all of us, do we at some point in time, even though where projects have been authorized, but they haven't moved forward for committal of funding and moving forward the project, do we require them to come back in and reapply, or what's the process there?
Typically what'll happen is project managers are staying in contact with these applications and saying, hey, what's the timeline here? Sometimes it's they're waiting for other sources of funding, but so there's sometimes a reason why we will leave it on. We'll say, okay, well, we'll leave it on there. It's not really hurting us to have it in the list of projects that have been authorized. And if at some point you come forward, but we do know that if it's been longer than 6 years, then they will need to come back and do a reauthorization. And because over that course of time, there will be a lot of different details. And so we do plan that they would come back for a reauthorization. We don't necessarily have a formal policy in that after a certain number of years, we automatically drop them off. If the board wants to discuss that, we could entertain that as a policy decision of saying after X number of years, if the project that's been authorized has not moved forward to committal, then it's automatically dropped. I'm open to other thoughts or suggestions on that, but that's kind of why you might see older projects on there is that they do, when we talk with them, they say, yeah, at some point we do intend to move forward, but we haven't gotten everything ready yet. Occasionally we do like having some projects that just to know that they are, to be aware of them, I guess is what I'm saying, so that as we're looking at funding forecasts and looking down the road to know, hey, we've got this list of projects that we know may want to come forward at some point. Just it helps us to gauge the interest that's out there and what other projects might be coming forward. So in some ways we kind of like having a list, even if some of them are older, just to know that these are projects that may come forward. Open to others' thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, this is Todd. Shalane and I have been in discussions and dialogue with Weaver Basin about bringing some other additional, I don't know if they're phases, Shalane, at least some additional projects forward, and we'll continue to have that discussion. So that might be why the phase 5 is on there, but we are in further discussion with some bigger numbers in helping them. So.
Yes, thanks, Todd. This is Shalane, and Tom and I have also had discussions because Tom's worked a lot with Weaver Basin, and actually this project that's sitting there, like it says, it was authorized phase 5. They had several projects that they submitted all at once, and some of their projects moved forward quicker than others. So this was authorized. This was part that was authorized and just never moved to committal. If it's appropriate, as we work with them to figure out what they're really doing now, then we'll withdraw this one and have them submit something new for what they're actually working on now. But Tom and I are trying to work with Weaver Basin to get that sorted out.
And this is Kyle again. And I just raised the question from the standpoint of is that an issue that the rest of the board, as Joel mentioned, that generally after 6 years they kind of come off and go back for reauthorization. Is that hard and fast policy, or do we need to have policy discussion on that? Just a question.
This is Norman. Won't the cost automatically go up given the number of years?
Generally, that's been his history, hasn't it, Norman? Yeah, I think that the way Joel explained it, I mean, our policy has been, if it's longer than 6 years, they've got to come back for reauthorization. Things change too much. I don't see a reason to change that. I mean, the only thing I could see changing is if we shorten that period of time, perhaps. But my personal take is I think it's a good thing to have these projects out there on a list to know what people are thinking, and maybe what the future might bring, what might be out there waiting on projects, and not get blindsided. I think it's good to have a list of things that are out there, but the deal of getting it reauthorized, I don't see a reason to change that personally. I don't know, board members, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Charles and Joel. I'm looking at 3 of these projects are in my area, and the one that's the most ancient up here is Woodruff Irrigating Company, and 2 of the principals have died in that irrigating company, the guys that were really pushing for this stuff. So you don't know what's going on there. With the Box Elder County Perry City Flood Control District, they've had a complete change of board members, and I'm pushing them a little bit to see if their new board members are interested in that project that Russell and I went and investigated. But boards change, people pass away, and things like that happen without us knowing about it.
So Director Adams, with your staff, have you got the resources and the wherewithal to, on some of these older ones, just go question them and see how serious are they or not, or what kind of effort would that entail? Do we need to trim this list down, and do we need to get rid of some of the ones that they have no intention? I think that's what you're asking somewhat, isn't it, Kyle? How long do we leave these on? And if there's no intention of doing it, where do we go from here?
Yes, and back to Joel's point about it's good to have a list of potential projects and stuff out there. There's some. I would think that some of those could just revert back to the back page of additional future funding needs type thing, and we still have them on the books and we don't lose track of them. But just a question for for a future agenda item to maybe have further discussion on it.
So, Mr. Chairman, you reached out and asked if we had staff. Yes, we do. We did reach out to most of these on the list. It seems like to me not too long ago. If I'm getting that wrong, Shalane, shake your head no or yes, but I believe we reached out, and most of them that are on this list still wanted to be on this list and had some sort of plan, or at least had thoughts of working on these projects at some point in time.
Mr. Chairman.
And yes, that's correct. Sorry, Randy. Let me just pipe in to finish answering Kyle's question. If that's what you'd prefer, that say anything more than 3-4 years old, so anything back to 2015 or earlier, that we just move to that back page of possible future needs, I'm happy to do that. We can, and that way, we know that they still want it, and at least by keeping in touch, we can find out if someone, like Charles mentioned, the Woodruff Irrigating, if they know they're not going to pursue that, then we can just have them officially withdrawn, and they won't be muddying up the waters at all. So I'm happy to take that step if that would clear things up a little bit for you.
Well, and I appreciate that explanation. I looked at it from the standpoint of projects authorized. I thought those were, in my mind, projects that were in fact authorized. They were actively working on moving forward to the next phase. Whereas it appeared that some of these, if they've been there that long, as Charles has mentioned and others, board members change, board members pass away and such. So, yeah, I don't have a preference one way or the other. I was just raising the question.
Okay.
Okay, Randy, you had something, Randy. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my comment is just maybe to ask Todd if you and staff would take a look and maybe come up with a recommendation in the future for us that we could put a policy in place. And I think that would eliminate this discussion if we just put a policy in place, if that be appropriate.
Mr. Chair, Joel asked me to kind of fill in something on the rules, the administrative rules that we have. He was remembering the 6 years. The 6-year authorization applies to phased projects that would last longer than 2 years. A typical project is authorized for 2 years, and the rules state that the board may grant an extension if the applicant has shown due diligence in completing its requirements for an additional year. Just wanted to clarify that's what the existing rules say.
Okay, thank you, Todd. Director Adams, would you have your staff in the framework of the existing rules and all of that, do as Randy suggested, come up with a recommendation of maybe a policy that at one of our next board meetings we could address and come up with a recommendation on this?
We will definitely do that. Thank you. I think what would be good is to restate the rule that Todd just talked about, the guidelines that we're under, and then go from there and make a recommendation. So.
Okay, that would be good. Okay, let's backtrack just for a minute where Wayne just joined us. Wayne, when we get in the agenda of the 1 o'clock board meeting, we will be reconsidering some of the action items that we did in January, and we'll need to have additional votes on them and that type of thing. One of those areas that we will be, it's a feasibility report, RE 443. It's with Sunrise and Bench Creek Irrigation Company in Wasatch County. And Shalane will be giving just a quick summary of that. We will be needing a vote, someone to make a vote on authorizing, reconsidering that and having an action on it. Where that's your area, Wayne, or are you prepared and willing to make that motion? You're on mute, Wayne.
Sorry about that. Is it in this booklet?
She will put it on the screen what staff's recommendation will be. So
okay. Do I need to spend a minute with you in between this meeting and the board meeting to come up to speed on that?
You bet. Yeah, after this gets over, I'll give you a call.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be glad to do that.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Okay, going back to our agenda on the briefing meeting on information for the board, Director Adams, we just went through the status of funds. If you would go through some of the other information that we've talked about.
We'd love to. We've got several things we wanted to chat about, but let's have Candace give a quick update report on our legislative update. Candace, if you're ready to do that.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman of the Board and members of the board. I'm Candace Hausneger, and as I provided you this morning with the newsletter that summarized this, I am going to kind of keep it high level to the 4 or 5 bills that passed. We could talk a lot about all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and what could have happened, but let's focus on what actually happened. So HB 297, Colorado River Amendments, was passed. This was a bill sponsored by Speaker Wilson and President Adams, and it created a Colorado River Authority of Utah with a mission to protect, conserve, use, and develop Utah's Colorado River Basin waters. And, this, as Mr. Chairman, you mentioned earlier, it creates the ability for them to have an executive director, hire staff, contractors, all those things. And it does direct the Division of Water Resources to work with and in conjunction with this authority. So as Todd mentioned, our hope is that this will just create, a broader team to address some of the complex issues that is facing the Colorado River system. And then another bill that was passed was HCR 10, the Flaming Gorge stakeholders. This was a bill sponsored by Representative Chu and Senator Hinkins, and it describes the Green River stakeholders' interest in having a more active role in how Flaming Gorge releases are done. That's currently done through a ROD. And Todd can give you a lot more information on this, but that was, I believe it was 2006. So it's been in place for quite some time, but there are concerns with erosion, flows, all those type of things. So this group wants to work in greater conjunction with the Bureau of Reclamation on the releases in Flaming Gorge. Todd, is there anything that you'd like to add in regards to that one?
Well,
or the Colorado River amendments?
No, that's pretty good on both of them. It's HCR 1, not 10.
Thank you.
And then also, some of the other issues are part of the native endangered native fish program and finding refugia and other things for them, or at least habitat. So, no, you've done it great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Another one that we're really excited about is SB 199, which was under the auspicious title of water amendments. So this one was a bill that was sponsored by Senator McKell and Representative Cox. And it actually, and Todd realized that he didn't mention this earlier, appropriated $2 million ongoing as grants for the installation of secondary meters for small secondary water suppliers. So this is money that the board will be able to grant out. It was put into I believe the construction or the development fund to use. And how the legislation defines a small secondary water supplier is less than 5,000 connections or less. It does require a 50% cost share. So I do need to work with Shalane and Joel to kind of figure out and write the board rules associated with this. There was initial kind of indication that because of the grant funds that you all already deal with and distribute as part of the dam safety fund, that this won't be that foreign, but we will have to kind of go through that process to make sure that's outlined. But we're really excited about having some money to put and support small secondary water suppliers to install secondary meters. Another couple that are really important are SB 225 and SJR 14. And these are bills that were passed in regards to the Navajo water rights bills. The sponsors were Senator Hinkins and Representative Watkins. And these are really the next step that the Utah legislature needed to do to ratify the agreement, as well as to appropriate the remaining funds that Utah needed to commit. Previously, $2 million was set aside in a Utah or Navajo water rights settlement account. $2 million was set aside. An additional $6 million was set aside with SB 225. So that is super exciting, and I'm happy to provide some more information and context on the importance of those water rights, but I know we're limited on time. But whatever the board would like. And then I won't go through all the other bills. There are a list of kind of interesting bills associated, but those are the main water bills and that directly impact this board. Happy to take any questions.
I would just like to reaffirm what was said earlier. That's a good summary. I appreciate it, Candace, and that know the flow summary thing that you're going to do quarterly. That's a great idea. I think thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Director Adams, next thing.
Yeah, well, let's keep going down the list. Let's see. Drought Reporting Committee. We have met with as the Drought Reporting Committee and have recommended to the governor, and again, that a drought declaration be declared. That was, I believe, sent up, and they're just working on the final version of that, and that should be signed by the governor whenever the governor gets around to signing drought declarations or whatever else. Right now, I'm assuming he's reviewing, 502 bills, and he's got a lot of that on his plate. So just wanted you to be aware of that, and we'll know more about the status of the water supply in Jordan Clayton's presentation this afternoon. It is better than it was, but it is not where we would like it near 100%, so or above. But we're approaching statewide 80%. These southern storms that have come in have really helped. There are areas that are better and worse, of course. So we're just hoping for more. I've got another list of definitely different things. Board appointments. Those 4 of you that know about your board appointments or reappointments, we still have not heard anything, and we are just going to continue on with you until we hear anything else. And we love that. We love that. So all of our staff, see, they've got thumbs up, right? So we're glad to have you still on the board, and we'll keep working on that. If we hear something different, you will be the first to know when I know. So, Water Users Workshop is going to be held in St. George, May 17th through the 19th. Typically, the first day is some sort of golf event, and then there is meetings the next day, Tuesday and Wednesday, or part of the day on Wednesday. As of right now, it's on. There is a little caveat and problem that state employees and some federal employees cannot travel to water users or travel for conferences right now. We're still trying to get word out, new word out from the governor of what's allowed. But as board members, if you would like to attend, please let us know. We will get you paid and get you some reservations down there. And if not, virtual is an option. And some of us that will be making presentations will, as of right now, will be making those presentations virtually. So any questions on that?
I made a phone call, Director Adams. This is Blaine. I made a phone call this morning to the conference reservation, and I asked the lady point blank if indeed I says I know that the state employees, federal employees cannot travel down, and they are preparing virtual presentations. My question to this lady was, if like our board members or us as individuals don't want to, are not able to go down there, will things be available virtually for us? Yes, Todd can present something virtually, Candace can, and so on. But for me, can I view things virtually? She did not have an answer to that question. She said they're working on that they do not know the answer, but they'll have to know the answer soon because May 17th is quickly coming up. So at this stage of the game, as of this morning, they don't know whether it will be available for participants or attendees to do it virtually, as well as those who are presenters.
That's good to know. I will reach out to Carly Burton and the Utah Water Users and make sure we get that addressed.
Director Adams.
Yes.
And this is Jim. Will we change our board meeting to during that time, or will it still stay on the 5th?
As of right now, we still have it virtually on the 5th. Unless you would like to move it. You are the board members. You can choose when we do the meetings.
The 5th is all right with me. I just didn't know if everybody came down, if you're wanting to do it down here or not.
This is Blaine again. I guess logistically, if we have to do it virtually again, I think it would be easier to do it virtually if we're doing it like we are now, separate of some people in person at a thing and then at a hotel trying to get on virtually and all of that. I think if we're going to do it virtually, I personally would prefer to have it separate and distinct from where some people can be down there and some can't, and those that are down there that don't live down there can we get on, and so on and so forth. That's my just personal thing. I don't know, board members, your thoughts?
Blaine, this is Kyle. I would agree with you and what you just said. Excuse me, and what you just said, that it would be difficult unless everyone was there. Great, but if not, I think having it ahead of time virtually like we've been doing will be better off.
And Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that. We could have the meeting on the 5th virtually, and then if things open up, we can go to the other. If it doesn't, we haven't got to try to figure out how to rearrange.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? Should we just leave it the 5th? Are there any board members that would like to change it from the 5th? Okay, it sounds like virtual meeting right now on May the 5th, separate from the conference down there.
Okay, we got the word. We will plan on May 5th, and please reach out to Lindsay and I and let us know if you would like us to get you hotel accommodations down in the St. George area. Please do that within the next week or so, so we can get that scheduled for you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Wayne. Just to let you know, Todd, I'm already signed up for that meeting, and I'll be staying in my own home down there, so don't have to worry about it.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
I'm not signed up for the meeting, but I've got a good home to stay in down here. So you could put me on for the meeting.
Well, that was one of the questions as far as who signed up for it and who isn't, that I verified with my phone call this morning. That was one of my motives. Those who were registered for the meeting a year ago and it wasn't held are still signed up. The registration is still valid. And so she looked me up by name and said, yes, Blaine, you're registered. You're still registered for the conference. Your fees have been paid and all of that. So the question is, can I go down personally or not becomes the question. So.
Yeah, so that's what we need to hear from all of you. If you would please respond, and Lindsay and Candace and I will start looking at that, and again, I'll get a call into Carly and let them know. So
okay, sounds good. Okay, you got other things, Director?
Oh yeah, we still got a few more things.
Okay.
One is you already talked about the Slow the Flow quarterly newsletter. We're really excited to have that out. That was a brainchild of Candace and some of our staff, and they provided some wonderful input into that. And so I just want to thank them for all their hard work on that. As you saw, we got a new large application and some sticker shock, and we will work on that project and have more here to come. I don't believe they're planning on doing anything on it for over a year, but it's nice to have the application. So, and then the last thing, and I think Shalane's going to help me a little bit with this, and we probably need lots of help with this, but for all of you, as well as us, we need to retake some of the open public meeting notice training. So we are good on that. So Shalane will be sending you out an email to jump on and take that training and refresh what we need to be doing there. And I guarantee that me and a few others here at the division will be taking that training also.
Yes, I'll be sending that link out shortly. And if you don't mind, Todd, while I have my mic, we forgot to mention earlier, Blaine spoke about there will be a Bear River Development Project update by Marisa. We just wanted to note there will actually be some action needed to be taken by the board. she's requesting funds for a project or for a contract to enter into with Weaver Basin Water Conservancy District for maintenance of some of the right-of-way properties that we are purchasing. And so she'll have that information, but there is a motion that we'll need the board to take. So I don't know if you'd like to ask someone to make that motion or just be aware of it. That's something that will be part of the Bear River Development Project update.
Okay, Charles, if Marisa or Shalane can get that information to you for a motion, would you be willing to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I will do that.
Okay, Marisa, Shalane, if you'll get that info to them, to Charles.
Mr. Chair, that is in the board book, and that staff recommendation for the motion is there.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read through it.
Okay. Is there any anything we need to do on the Lake Powell pipeline report on that? I'm not remembering.
There won't be any motions.
Okay. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, as we talk about the Bear River development and the right-of-ways component, I believe we're getting fairly close to hitting that $5 million expense limit that you directed us to work towards. And I don't know if it'll be in the May meeting or one of the next meetings. We will probably come for an additional appropriation. I don't know, an additional set aside for more right-of-way purchase. So just so you're aware of that, will happen into the future.
Okay, thanks.
All right. With that, I think that is all I have for now. I just thank you so much for being patient with us. We'll get through this long agenda.
Okay, that's it as far as our agenda. Before we adjourn, board members, any other things you want to cover right now? Or the actual board meeting will be in a little over an hour. Suggest you can log out and log back in, or you can just stay logged in if you don't want to take a chance of not getting back in. We are just an hour and 2 or 3 minutes away from 1 o'clock. But board members, before we adjourn this meeting, any last things you'd like to cover? Any questions? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to close this board briefing meeting.
This is Kyle, so moved.
Okay, Kyle makes a motion. Do we have a second?
It's Norman, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion or clarification on the motion to adjourn this meeting? Okay, if not, we'll take a roll call vote. Bear River, Charles Holmgren.
I vote aye.
Weaver River, Kyle Stevens.
Aye.
Salt Lake, Juliet Tennert.
Aye.
Provo River, Wayne Anderson.
Aye.
Green River, Randy Crozier.
Aye.
Upper Colorado River, Norman Johnson.
Aye.
Lower Colorado River, James Lemon.
Yes.
Okay, before we say that the voting's been unanimous and the meeting closed, if the minutes could just reflect that Wayne Anderson did join us for this meeting. So the voting has been taken on the motion to close this meeting. It's been unanimous on a roll call vote by all the board members. The meeting is adjourned. It is now 12 o'clock p.m. The next meeting will start in 1 hour, 1 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, this is Wayne. Are we going to discuss that motion that I'm going to have to make?
I'm going to call you right now, Wayne.
Okay.
On your cell phone, right?
That's fine.
I'll give you a call. Thanks, everyone.